Dr. Robert Rosenthal has studied over 400 experiments to prove that what he calls the Pygmalion Effect can significantly influence the behavior of those around us.
One of the first experiments that we did was one in which we employed rat subjects. We told our experimenters that we had developed a special strain of extra smart rats and another strain of extra dull rats, and we wanted to see how they'd perform in mazes. And half the experimenters got rats that were labeled maze bright, and half got rats that were labeled maze dull. But they were just labeled that way. They were the same rats, basically. And when the results were in, we got quite a surprise. What happened was that those rats that were run by experimenters believing them to be bright performed brightly. Those rats that were run by experimenters believing them to be dull performed dully.
If rats are capable of responding to the Pygmalion Effect, could the effect be documented and measured on people? In 1969, Rosenthal began an experiment to test the Pygmalion Effect in the classroom. Rosenthal told each teacher in a typical elementary school that a special test designated 20% of her students as intellectual bloomers. He assured each teacher that these pupils, on their own, would show remarkable gain in intelligence in the next 8 months. Of course, the children had really been chosen at random. At that point, the only difference between them and their classmates was in the mind of the teacher.
Very good. Very
At the end of the school term, a test revealed that the so-called bloomers had actually bloomed, gaining 4 points more in total IQ than their classmates.
We weren't all that surprised by the basic results of this experiment. For those kids who were expected to do well, and for those kids who were already in the fast track of the school, the more those kids gained in IQ, the more favorably they were viewed by their teachers. But there was a result that took us quite by surprise. For those kids for whom no special favorable expectations were held, and especially if they were already in the slow track of the school, the more those kids gained in IQ, and some of them gained quite a lot, the more unfavorably they were viewed by their teachers.
Teachers seem to prefer, and indeed maybe other people do too, that others behave as they are expected to.
The experimental Pygmalion results were impressive, but could they be transferred from the classroom to the workplace? In another experiment at a vocational training center for the hardcore unemployed, a welding instructor was told that 5 of his trainees had an exceptionally high aptitude for welding. In reality, of course, the 5 men had been chosen at random. During the 6-month course, however, these high-aptitude personnel, or HAPs as they grew to be called, changed their behavior significantly. They were absent fewer times than the control group. They learned the fundamentals of welding in a little more than half the time, and they scored 10 points higher on a comprehensive welding test. As part of the experiment, the class was also asked to rate itself. Without exception, each trainee singled out the HAPs as those he would most prefer to work and be with. When the welding instructor was later told the purpose of the experiment, he was shocked. He had truly believed he had acted the same toward all of his trainees. Yet the instructor's expectation was the only independent variable in the experiment. Knowingly or not, his beliefs had somehow influenced the HAP's performance.